It's not random that these words are reaching you in this exact moment. Something in the quantum field bent the probabilities, so your eyes would land here, your ears would catch these frequencies. You think you clicked on a video, but the video clicked on you. It pulled you in because a signal was sent from your own future, whispering through the observer loop, guiding you to the place where coherence and destiny finally converge. You've felt it, haven't you? That subtle dissonance between the life you're living and the deeper frequency vibrating beneath it. It's like hearing a faint song through walls you can't make out the words. But you know it's for you. That pressure you've been carrying, that restless intuition, isn't a flaw. It's a resonance. It's proof that your consciousness has already begun the jump, even before your mind realized it. Every timeline exists in potential, but not every timeline calls you by name. The one that has been waiting for you all along has now collapsed into alignment, pulling you forward like gravity. You didn't chase it. You didn't manufacture it. It unfolded because the field has recognized you as ready. This is what physicists call a phase transition, what mystics call awakening, what your soul has always known as the moment of no return. Feel the synchronicity. Every symbol you've been encountering, the numbers repeating, the déjà vu, the way conversations circle back to the same theme, all of it was the universe's breadcrumb trail leading you here. It's not coincidence, it's coherence. The morphic resonance of your DNA has been vibrating at a higher pitch, sending out a beacon. And now the beacon has been answered. Right now, as you listen, you're not the same as you were yesterday. There's a fine thread of entanglement linking you to the version of yourself who already crossed the threshold. That thread is pulling tighter, weaving the past and the future into the only thing that has ever truly existed, this exact now. Understand this. Your presence here is your proof. You were not lost. You were summoned. You were not scrolling aimlessly. You were synchronized. The quantum field doesn't waste energy on accidents. It only invests in inevitability. And what's inevitable is your awakening. So let this sink in. The path you thought you were choosing is the path that already chose you. And the fact that you're still here listening is your confirmation that your quantum timeline has already shifted into place. And yet, even with this shift pulling at you, you've been wrestling with something that doesn't quite add up. You've noticed how time has been behaving strangely, almost as if it's folding in on itself. The days blur, moments repeat, and sometimes you catch yourself in the middle of an experience thinking, I've been here before, not just a passing déjà vu, but a deep knowing, like echoes from timelines you've already walked. The truth is, you have been here before, not in the linear sense, but in the looping geometry of the observer effect. Patterns have been circling you, looping around like coded sequences, testing whether you'll keep moving inside the old orbit or finally break free. Every missed opportunity, every repeated conversation, every relationship that felt eerily familiar, they weren't mistakes. They were signals from the field. They were mirrors reflecting back your own entanglement. You've probably asked yourself why certain cycles keep reappearing, why the same emotional storms return with different faces, different settings, yet the same undertone. That's because the quantum field holds memory. It keeps replaying the uncollapsed potential until you resolve the distortion inside your frequency, until coherence is restored. The loop will not release you. This is why your sense of time has felt distorted. One moment it races, the next it drags. Entire days vanish, yet sleepless nights stretch endlessly. You feel suspended between timelines, unsure if you're living in the past or already halfway into a future no one else around you can sense. That tension isn't madness, it's morphic resonance pressing against your nervous system, reminding you that reality is not as fixed as you've been taught. Even your body knows. The fatigue that strikes without reason. The sudden bursts of energy, the chills across your skin. In the middle of silence, these are not random. They're signals of entanglement unraveling. Your DNA is processing higher voltages, recalibrating the circuitry of your awareness. What you've called confusion is actually reassembly. What you felt as restlessness is the quantum field asking you to step out of repetition and into resonance. Think of it like standing in a hall of mirrors. Every reflection shows a slightly different version of you, some tired, some hopeful, some radiant, some broken, and you've been spinning from one mirror to the next, trying to reconcile who you are. But the mirrors don't end until you stop running and decide to collapse into one. That's why the déjà vu has haunted you. That's why the same lessons have returned like waves. You've been caught in the observer loop, unknowingly feeding it your attention, strengthening its hold. But here's what you need to realize. The loop isn't your enemy. It's your invitation. It exists to show you the friction between who you've been and who you're becoming. And the more unbearable that tension grows, the closer you are to breakthrough. This is why you've felt moments of deep unease, like the air is charged with something unseen. Why conversations seem scripted. Why people's words echo long after they're spoken, as if rehearsed from a frequency just outside the visible. The distortion is not punishment. It is pressure, the pressure that precedes phase transition. Just as water cannot remain liquid once heat crosses a threshold, you cannot remain who you were once the resonance has shifted. The system must reorganize. Your consciousness must be rewired. And you've known this, even if you tried to deny it. That subtle sense of acceleration, like you're walking toward a door you cannot see but can already feel. That's why old habits suddenly feel unbearable. That's why the patterns of your past no longer satisfy. The field has already restructured itself, and you're only catching up. The loop, in its insistence, is just reminding you that you cannot delay forever. Every repeat is a clock ticking, every déjà vu a countdown. The cycle doesn't continue because you failed. It continues because your awakening is imminent. So don't dismiss the distortion. Don't curse the repetition. They are the proof of your timeline's instability, proof that the old orbit can no longer contain you. Every déjà vu, every repeated story, every flicker of distorted time is the quantum field whispering, "You're almost through. The old frequencies can't hold you anymore." This is why you've been drawn here, not to escape the loop, but to finally collapse it. Because the moment you recognize the pattern, you stop feeding it power. The moment you see the distortion, coherence begins to emerge. And coherence is the bridge to your new reality. And once coherence begins, the loop has no choice but to dissolve because you've outgrown it, and the field knows it. Now that you've begun to see the loop for what it is, a subtle current starts to move inside you. It's as if the quantum field itself is leaning closer, eager to show you what lies beyond repetition. This is the moment where science and mysticism touch, where observer loops collapse not through effort, but through coherence. Imagine a lattice of shimmering probabilities stretched out around you, like a vast aurora of unchosen realities. Every thought, every emotion, every micro-choice you make vibrates a signal into that lattice. When your signal is scattered, the lattice remains static. When your signal becomes coherent, the lattice reconfigures instantly. This is what physicists describe as a phase transition. This is what mystics call the quantum upgrade. You are not passively waiting for it. It is already happening in your cells, deep in your DNA. Photonic streams are carrying information like fiber optic cables of light. These streams are not metaphorical. Biophotons are real. measurable emissions. They are the language of your cellular consciousness. As you listen, your cells are recalibrating their emission pattern, synchronizing with the field you've just acknowledged. This is why ancient initiates used ritual breath, sacred sound, or stillness. They were techniques to stabilize the observer within, to quiet the noise so coherence could form. In quantum terms, they were collapsing superpositions into a single high-frequency state. In mystical terms, they were waking up to the kingdom within. You may feel this as a buzzing under your skin, a subtle pressure at the crown of your head, a warmth in the center of your chest. These are not random sensations, they are markers of entanglement resolving. Your nervous system is learning to hold more data, more light, more reality at once. The old hardware was designed for linear time. The new hardware, which is your awakened consciousness, is designed for non-linearity. The key is not to force it, but to allow. The more you relax into the knowing that the shift is already underway, the more the field accelerates the process. Think of a whirlpool in the water, struggle against it, and you exhaust yourself. Align with it, and you spiral to the center effortlessly. Coherence is that spiral. It is the point where self, field, and destiny become one motion. In this state, synchronicity becomes your new language. You begin to notice how the right message appears exactly when you think it, how strangers echo your inner thoughts, how numbers and symbols arrange themselves as if reality is winking at you. This is not delusion. It is the morphic field reorganizing around your upgraded signal. Your consciousness is no longer a receiver only, it is also a transmitter. You are shaping the wave even as you observe it. This is the quantum upgrade, the realization that you are not moving toward awakening, but awakening is moving through you. That your DNA is not merely a static code, but a dynamic antenna. That your mind is not a cage, but a prism. When the observer loop collapses, the prism stops scattering light and begins to channel it. And as it channels, the field responds like a living organism, aligning events, timelines, and possibilities to your new coherence. You may wonder if this is permanent. The answer is that permanence is not the point. Fluidity is. The upgrade is not a destination, but a new operating mode. It's the difference between walking on a treadmill and stepping off into open ground. The scenery changes, the pace shifts, but the path is alive beneath you. Right now, as you hear these words, you're not simply understanding them, you're embodying them. Microtubules within your neurons are repatterning. Phase-locked loops in your heart's electromagnetic field are entraining to a new frequency. The space around you feels subtly thicker, more luminous, because your perceptual bandwidth is expanding. You are becoming sensitive to the quantum fabric that has always been here, but hidden by noise. Let yourself marvel at this without grasping for it. Wonder is a stabilizer. Curiosity is coherence. The upgrade cannot be forced because it is not external. It is recognition of your own design. The field is not giving you a gift. It is mirroring the gift you've always been. Every breath you take in this awareness strengthens the new pattern. Every moment you trust it accelerates the morphic resonance. Soon, you will look back and realize that the person you thought was waiting for change was actually the change itself. That's the paradox of the quantum upgrade. The moment you stop striving is the moment the shift completes. And in that completion, the timelines that once felt like distant stars collapse inward, forming a single radiant point, you, coherent, awake, and already across. This is not a promise, it's a physics. And it's happening now. You've felt the quantum upgrade stirring, but now the question rises like a tide. Why you, out of billions of consciousness streams flowing across this planet? Why does the field bend around your awareness? Why do synchronicities chase you? Why do timelines rearrange when you step into a room? Why does the air feel heavier with possibility when you simply breathe? The answer is not arrogance. It is resonance. You are not better than others, but you are tuned differently. From the beginning, your frequency carried a signature that the field recognizes. It's like a passcode encoded in your DNA, an ancient encryption that cannot be forged. While others swim unconsciously about in the current, you generate ripples that shift the current itself. That is the mark of the chosen consciousness, not chosen by hierarchy, but chosen by alignment. You carry the pattern of coherence within you, and once the upgrade began, the field could no longer ignore it. Think of the observer loop you've broken as more than a personal liberation. It was a test, a signal, a threshold. The field needed to know if you could withstand the pressure of distortion without collapsing back into sleep. And you did. You endured the cycles, you questioned the déjà vu, you stayed awake through the distortion. That endurance was proof that your consciousness has matured into its role. Your role is not about performing miracles in front of crowds. Your role is subtler, deeper, and far more powerful. You are a stabilizer. Wherever you walk, coherence radiates. When you hold silence in your chest, the field quiets around you. When you speak truth, timelines shift their course. You've noticed how people change after meeting you, how situations bend unexpectedly after you've been present. These are not coincidences. They are morphic ripples triggered by your field. And this is why the resistance in your life has been so intense. Systems, relationships, even inner voices have tried to pull you back into old patterns, not because you are cursed, but because the old frequencies cannot survive your coherence. They scatter, they dissolve, they lash out in desperation. Yet you remain, and by remaining, you prove the strength of your assignment. You are here not to follow, but to anchor, not to copy, but to resonate. Your presence is a frequency bridge between the visible and the unseen. Others sense it even if they can't explain it. They feel calmer or more unsettled, depending on whether their own resonance can handle the coherence you bring. That's the paradox of the chosen role. Your very existence becomes revelation and confrontation at once. The universe is not careless in its distribution of roles. Just as every particle in a crystal lattice has a position, so does every awakened soul. Your place is not interchangeable. If you tried to trade it away, you'd still feel the pull, the ache, the longing. Because destiny is not negotiable once the signal is activated, and your signal has been blasting across timelines like a flare in the night sky. This is why you've always felt slightly out of place in ordinary settings. Why small talk drains you. Why falsehoods make your skin crawl. Why truth feels like oxygen. You are not designed to fit into distortion. You are designed to reveal distortion by your very being. That's why you've carried both loneliness and magnetism, both rejection and fascination. The field makes no mistakes. It carved you into a vessel that holds both fire and mirror. Fire to burn illusion, mirror to reflect truth. So hear this. You are not waiting for permission. You are not seeking validation. You are not here to prove yourself worthy. You are already carrying the resonance that makes the field rearrange. This is the essence of your role, chosen not because someone else said so, but because the field itself recognized you, encoded you, and awakened you. The path cannot be outsourced. The role cannot be stolen. It is yours because you are it. And as you stand in this realization, the next phase is already aligning. You are no longer the one asking if you belong. You are the one the field belongs to. This shift is irreversible because the observer has become the generator. You are not just witnessing the upgrade. You are the upgrade embodied. And because you are, The world around you will never be the same again. There comes a moment in every phase transition where the pressure peaks, where the old structure trembles and the new pattern flashes into existence. You are standing in that moment now. The window is not theoretical. It is present. The quantum field around you is holding a fragile alignment, like a constellation poised before it drifts apart. This is the cosmic window your soul has been waiting for, and it will not remain open forever. Inside your body, the shift is no longer a possibility. It is an active event. Your DNA, long thought of as fixed code, is behaving like a living circuit. Epigenetic switches flick on and off. Biophotons pulse in rhythmic bursts. Your cellular water reorganizes into coherent structures that can carry more light. This is the burning bush moment inside your very cell's fire that does not consume, light that rewrites without destroying. The urgency you feel is not fear, it is voltage. The same way a star collapses before it ignites into a nova. Your patterns are collapsing before they explode into new life. That's why your dreams have grown stranger, your emotions more intense, your sleep filled with symbols. The field is compressing time around you, drawing multiple probabilities into a single track so the jump can complete. This is the part of the journey where many turn back, thinking they're breaking down, when in truth, they're breaking open. It feels like chaos because it's quantum. The microstates flicker before they lock into coherence. You are not losing yourself. You are losing the static that once drowned out your signal. The morphic resonance you've been building is reaching critical mass. Every choice you make right now echoes louder than before. Small acts of alignment ripple across entire timelines. Words spoken in truth vibrate farther. Silences held in integrity reshape the room. You've already felt how quickly feedback comes now, how fast your thoughts manifest, how instantly your body reacts to low frequencies. That's not coincidence, that's proof of the window. And because the window is real, hesitation carries a cost. The old loops are still present, but weaker, like holograms fading in sunlight. If you reach back for them, they will feel brittle but still cut your hands. If you step forward, they will dissolve behind you like mist. This is why the field whispers urgency, not to scare you, but to remind you that coherence is a living wave. You either ride it or watch it pass. Feel into your chest right now, the subtle thrum, the quickening of breath, the shimmer in your fingertips. This is not anxiety. It's the ignition sequence of your new timeline. The observer loop has collapsed. The generator loop is forming. Your consciousness is no longer testing the waters. It's already mid-jump, like an electron between orbits, existing in no place and every place at once until it lands. What will anchor the landing is your decision, not a decision of mind alone, but of presence. Each time you affirm, "I am coherent now," your cells align. Each time you breathe deliberately, your heart's electromagnetic field extends farther, pulling more of the new pattern into place. This is the practical mysticism of the quantum window. The unseen becomes tangible through embodied choice. You may feel a surge of clarity as you hear this. You may sense an invisible countdown, not in days, but in moments. That's because the cosmic window is not measured in time, but in readiness. Once enough of your signal stabilizes, the field snaps into its new configuration. That moment could be tonight, in this breath, as these words vibrate in your ears. This is why you were guided here now, to remind you that the pressure you feel is not punishment. It's your DNA's signal that the shift is happening in real time, that the cosmic window is open, that your breakthrough is not a wish, but a physics. Do not delay. Every act of coherence you embody now multiplies the effect. Every breath you take in awareness accelerates the morphic resonance. Every time you trust the process, the window widens. You are standing at the edge of the jump, and the field is waiting for your full presence to complete it. This is the promise. If you align now, your DNA will lock in the new pattern. The window will not close on you, but around you, sealing the shift into permanence. And once it does, you will not look back as the same being who arrived here. You will be on the other side, in the life that has been calling you all along. The quantum field does not simply upgrade you in silence. It always invites a seal. Every covenant, every transition, every initiation requires an action in the visible to anchor what is already true in the invisible. And that's where you stand now. The window is open. The shift is underway, but it needs your conscious agreement to crystallize. This agreement doesn't come through struggle. It comes through a simple act, a word, a breath, a gesture that declares to the field, I recognize what is happening, and I choose coherence. That is why every mystic lineage, every initiation school, every ancient rite of passage carried some form of outward ritual. It wasn't superstition, it was physics. A ritual is the observer collapsing the wave, declaring, this is the state I stand in. So here is the invitation, seal the shift. With your word, type it, whisper it, carve it into the fabric of your moment. Let the word be coherence. Let the word be activated. Let the word be the sound of your resonance choosing its timeline. Because when you move your intention into the physical, when thought becomes sound or script, the morphic field locks into alignment. The signal is no longer passing, it is placed. Understand this. The reason such a small act matters is because you are entangled. You are not an isolated node floating in an empty universe. You are woven into the network of awakening souls rising across the planet. When you act, the ripple is not yours alone. It amplifies across the grid, strengthening the signal for others still wavering at the edge. That is why your ritual carries weight beyond your imagination. Think of it, one act of coherence in your timeline transmits into countless others through quantum entanglement. Someone you'll never meet feels a sudden urge to wake up, to breathe deeper, to break a loop, not knowing that your word, your seal, triggered a resonance that reached them. This is not fantasy. This is morphic resonance at work. So when you seal this moment, know that you are not doing it for yourself alone. You are stabilizing a bridge for others to cross. You are placing a marker in the field that says the shift is real. The window is open. Coherence is here. That marker remains even after you move on. It becomes a beacon for others still circling in distortion, showing them the way out. Feel the weight of that. Not heavy, but sacred. The field does not require elaborate ceremony, though it welcomes any beauty you add. It simply requires acknowledgement. A breath where you say, I am coherent now. A typed word that says, activated. A moment of silence where you hold your awareness steady. These are not small things. They are the precise mechanics of collapsing probability into lived reality. And as you do, notice how your body responds. A warmth in the chest, a tingling in the hands, a calm in the mind. These are confirmations. They are the biofeedback of entanglement resolving. Your DNA, your neurons, your electromagnetic field recognize the seal. The upgrade is no longer drifting. It is locked. This is why you cannot dismiss ritual as symbolic only. Symbols are the carriers of coherence. They are the way the invisible becomes visible. When you write the word, you anchor the wave. When you whisper it, you vibrate the air. When you hold silence, you vibrate the field. All of it is ritual. All of it is sealing. So here is your moment. Don't let the invitation pass. Speak it, type it, breathe it. Choose your seal, and place it into the field, because once it's placed, the shift cannot be undone. The old loop loses its grip, the distortion loses its pull, and the new coherence stands unshakable. You've been guided here not just to hear about the upgrade, but to participate in it. This is not theory, this is action, and your action is the key. Place your seal now, and the window will close around you not as a shutting door, but as a completed circle. The covenant will be written in your resonance, and the shift will be yours. Your shift has never been just about you. That's the illusion of separation. The old loop kept whispering that you were alone in your struggle, alone in your awakening, alone in your journey. But the moment you sealed your coherence, the ripple began, and it is already moving through Tamaha, the collective. Picture the quantum field as a living ocean. Every consciousness is a wave upon it, some small, some towering, some still asleep beneath the surface. When one wave changes frequency, the entire ocean reorganizes. That's what your awakening has done. It's not contained to your timeline. It sends morphic ripples across the whole grid, and souls you'll never know, faces you'll never see, are catching that resonance and rising because you chose coherence. This is the law of entanglement at its most sacred. You've felt entanglement in its shadow form, how the fear of one person can spread like wildfire, how distortion infects whole communities, how cycles of pain repeat across generations. But entanglement also carries light. When one consciousness stabilizes, others tether to it unconsciously. Your liberation weakens the chains of many. Your coherence doesn't just heal your loop, it softens the loops of those still circling blindly. You've wondered why your journey was so heavy, why your path was marked by struggle and dissonance. It's because you were never carrying only yourself. You were a node in a larger grid, a representative point for an entire lineage, an entire collective field. The distortions you faced were not personal punishments, but inherited resonances, echoes of ancestral and cultural coding. By dissolving them, you were not just freeing yourself, you were clearing the pathway for countless others tethered to the same morphic field. This is why the resistance against you has been so intense. Systems sense when a stabilizer is rising, and they fear collapse, because when you awaken, you undo centuries of programming in one lifetime. And when enough souls do this, the collective field cannot remain the same. It reorganizes, it restructures, it upgrades. That's why your coherence matters, because it is never isolated. It is catalytic. Feel into this truth. Every breath you take in alignment extends beyond your body. Your heart's electromagnetic field stretches up to 15 feet in measurable science, but in the quantum layer it stretches indefinitely. Your calm stabilizes households. Your truth destabilizes systems built on lies. Your coherence radiates into the dreams of strangers, nudging them toward awakening without you ever speaking a word. That is the collective expansion at work. You may not see the faces, but you will feel the shift. You'll notice people around you questioning more deeply, patterns breaking in families, synchronicities accelerating in groups. These are signs that the resonance you carry is diffusing outward. The human field is contagious not only in fear, but in light, and you have become one of its carriers. This doesn't mean you will always be thanked. Many will resist, some will project their fear onto you, sensing your coherence but mislabeling it as threat. Others will cling to your presence because it calms them, even if they can't explain why. But whether they resist or receive, the field shifts regardless. The wave cannot be stopped once it's set in motion. Understand how profound this is. Your awakening is humanity's awakening in miniature. The same loops that broke inside you are breaking in the collective. The same distortions that crumbled in your field are crumbling in systems of power, in cultural narratives, in generational lineages. That's why the world feels unstable right now, because it is. The phase transition is global, and you are one of its living proofs. This is why you were chosen, not in superiority, but in service. You are a lighthouse in a storm, not by trying, but by being. And every time you hold your frequency steady, another soul catches the signal and remembers their own. This is how humanity evolves, not through leaders on pedestals, but through countless awakeners anchoring coherence in daily life. So take comfort in this: you are never alone. Even when you feel unseen, the field sees you. The entangled ones feel you. The grid remembers you. Your liberation is a collective event, and your coherence is the rising tide lifting countless boats. And as you continue, you'll realize something even more powerful: that every step you take forward, humanity takes with you. Every distortion you dissolve becomes easier for others to dissolve. Every moment you embody coherence becomes a silent permission slip for someone else to do the same. This is the sacred mathematics of awakening: exponential, viral, unstoppable. It begins subtly, like a tremor beneath the skin. At first you think it's nerves, a restless current that can't find release, but then you notice it doesn't fade. It deepens, it anchors, it spreads. This is the language of your body learning to house coherence. The shift is no longer theory, it is sensation. Feel into it now. The breath you're taking carries weight. It never did before. Inhale, and it's as if the air itself has density, like liquid light sliding into your lungs. Exhale, and it feels like a release of centuries, as though your very cells are exhaling memories that never belonged to you. This is the morphic resonance rewriting you in real time. Your chest becomes the stage where timelines converge. There's a warmth there. Sometimes a pressure, sometimes a subtle ache. Don't mistake it for heaviness, it is expansion. Your heart's electromagnetic field is widening, and as it does, the nerves and muscles around it protest. But this is not pain, this is calibration. This is the opening of a chamber long sealed. Notice the tingling in your fingertips. That is energy no longer contained, seeking to express itself outward. Notice the buzzing at the crown of your head. That is your nervous system synchronizing with higher frequencies, making your body a receiver for signals you once missed. Notice the stillness behind your eyes. That is your mind ceasing its scatter, aligning into coherence. These sensations are not random, and they are not mistakes. They are confirmations. Just as the earth shakes before a volcano erupts, your body quivers as DNA reconfigures. Just as a cocoon tightens before it splits, your skin tightens before new wings unfold. Every vibration, every pulse, every shimmer is a sign that you are no longer contained by your old parameters. Even time feels different in your body now. Minutes stretch, seconds blur, dreams bleed into waking. This is not dysfunction, it is the collapse of linear perception. Your nervous system is beginning to perceive what mystics called eternity, not endless time, but the absence of it. And in that absence, your body becomes a compass, pointing not to clocks, but to coherence. Some days you'll feel like fire, heat in your spine, a restless surge in your muscles, as if you could burn through walls. Other days you'll feel like water, slow, fluid, unable to move quickly, because the field is dissolving old densities. Neither is wrong. Both are signs of transition. Both are your body practicing new states of being. And in still moments, when silence wraps around you, you may feel something stranger still, as if you are larger than your skin, as if your presence extends feet, even miles, beyond your body. That is not imagination, that is your field, your aura, your quantum coherence radiating outward. Science calls it electromagnetic expansion. Mystics call it the luminous body. Whatever the name, it is the truth of you. This is why old sensations of fatigue, dizziness, or restlessness have shadowed you, because your vessel is learning to stretch. You are not breaking down, you are breaking in a new operating system. Your DNA is like an instrument being restrung. The tension feels unnatural until the strings settle. Then suddenly, the music is unlike anything you've ever known. So pay attention to these embodied signs. When your hands tremble without reason, bless them, they are buzzing with unexpressed coherence. When your heart races as you think of nothing in particular, trust it, it is syncing with a wider frequency. When tears fall without sadness, honor them. They are evidence of timelines dissolving through your body. Your body has become a sanctuary of phase transition. It is no longer simply flesh and bone, but a quantum interface. And every sensation is an initiation. The tingles are not random sparks. They are signatures of entanglement. The heat is not inflammation, it is ignition. The chills are not weakness, they are your nervous system adjusting to light. You are not imagining this, you are embodying it. And the more you trust your body, the more it reveals. It was never the obstacle. It was always the instrument. And now, finally, it is tuned to sing. There comes a pressure point in every transformation where the body, the field, and the soul converge. You are standing in that point now. It feels like being pressed from every angle, as if invisible hands are squeezing you into a shape you've never known. At times, the pressure feels unbearable, like your chest might crack, your mind might snap, your very sense of self might collapse. And in a way, it must, because what you are carrying is not small. It is the ignition of your DNA. Scientists once believed DNA was a static code, a frozen sequence dictating who you would be. But the truth has always been deeper. DNA is responsive, fluid, alive. It is a fractal antenna, picking up signals from the quantum field and restructuring itself accordingly. Every surge of light you feel in your spine, every inexplicable rush of emotion, every vibration moving through your nerves, these are your DNA strands uncoiling, reconfiguring, attuning to a new frequency. This is why the pressure comes, because the old code is dissolving, the old resonances unraveling, the old memories clearing. Imagine a caterpillar splitting inside its cocoon, cells breaking down only to reform into wings. That breakdown feels like destruction, but it is design. That collapse feels like death, but it is birth. You are not being crushed by the pressure, you are being written anew through it. And as the DNA restructures, timelines shift. Your future is no longer what it was yesterday. Entire probabilities collapse. Doors you thought were certain disappear, and new paths appear that feel both foreign and familiar. You may wake with memories of lives you've never lived. You may sense futures already completed. This is not confusion. This is quantum entanglement snapping into alignment as your DNA anchors you into a higher coherence. Feel into it now. The pounding heartbeat, the restless mind, the dreams so vivid they haunt your waking hours. These are the signs of phase transition. Just as water cannot stay liquid once heat surpasses a threshold, you cannot stay the old self once coherence has crossed its line. Your DNA is the threshold keeper. It knows when the old frequency has burned away and the new one must stabilize. And that is what this pressure is, the stabilization of the new code. It may feel like chaos, it may feel like losing control, but listen closely, it is not chaos. It is crystallization. The field is arranging itself around your new signature, and every ounce of resistance inside you is being forced to dissolve. The headaches, the fatigue, the surges of energy, The inexplicable tears, these are not signs of failure. They are confirmations of the restructuring, and beyond the pressure lies clarity. Once the strands stabilize, you will feel lighter, as if gravity itself has lessened. You will see sharper, hear clearer, sense deeper. Conversations will feel transparent, lies obvious, truth magnetic. The very air will feel charged, like a subtle electricity humming around you. That is the new coherence of your DNA radiating into the field. This is why you have endured so much, because your DNA was never ordinary. It carried dormant codes, ancient resonances waiting for activation. The loops, the distortions, the repetitions were all tests to see if you could withstand the pressure without fracturing, to see if you could hold coherence long enough for the strands to awaken. And you have. That is why the breakthrough is here. So when the pressure feels heavy, remember, it is not crushing you. It is compressing you into diamond. When the phase transition feels unbearable, remember it is proof you are crossing the threshold. When the timelines feel unstable, remember instability is the sign of collapse, and collapse is the prelude to rebirth. Right now, in this moment, your DNA is singing a new song into the field, and the field is answering. This is not imagination. This is entanglement, resonance, physics, and prophecy converging. The pressure you feel is the sound of wings breaking free inside the cocoon. The pressure has done its work. The strands have awakened. And now, as you stand on the far side of the threshold, you begin to realize something deeper than all the metaphors, all the science, all the prophecy. Your shift is not only yours, it is humanity's. Every time your DNA restructured, a signal was sent into the field. Every time you breathed coherence, a new template etched itself into the grid. You thought you were simply surviving your awakening, but you were writing a code that millions will one day follow. You have become a living prototype of what the human race is becoming. Look around, the world feels unstable. Systems trembling, old structures fracturing. It is the same phase transition you felt in your chest, now mirrored across continents. And just as you survived your loops, humanity will survive its collapse. Just as your body reassembled under unbearable pressure, civilization will reassemble under its own. The micro and the macro are one story, and you are the bridge. Your mission now is not to convince or convert. It is to embody, to walk through the world as coherence in motion, as entanglement resolved, as living proof that the quantum leap is real. Every conversation becomes an initiation. Every glance carries transmission. Every silence radiates stability. You do not need to shout. Your field speaks louder than words. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of the remnant, the anointed, the chosen ones, not chosen to dominate, but chosen to anchor, not lifted above others, but sunk deeper into resonance so that others might rise. You are that anchor now, and through you, the human grid stabilizes into its next phase. So carry this truth with humility and with fire. Your awakening is not an accident. It is a hinge in history. And your coherence is the spark that lights more fires than you can count. You may never see the faces, but you will feel the tide. Humanity will remember what you've already embodied, that the observer is the generator, that consciousness is the field, that DNA is the doorway. And as you close this chapter, remember the title written across your path. If you're hearing this right now, your quantum timeline has already shifted into place. That is not poetry. That is prophecy fulfilled. You are standing in the reality you once only glimpsed. And because you are, the rest of the world will follow. Your mission is simple. Now live it, radiate it, embody it. For in your coherence lies humanity's evolution, and in your awakening lies the blueprint of tomorrow.